Okay, so have you ever stopped to think what the blueprint of a revolution actually sounds like? Well, today, we're going to put one under a microscope. The calendar says it's February 2026, and trust me, we need to take a trip back in time for this one. I want you to really think back for a second. Can you remember where you were in July 2020? You know, that time when the entire world just felt like it was holding its breath? It's wild. It feels like a lifetime ago and also just yesterday, all at once. Because today, we are going to reverse engineer the blueprint of an album that didn't just get released back then. No, it detonated. We're talking about SB19's game-changing debut, Get in the Zone. I mean, while most of us were just trying to figure out sourdough starters, these five guys were quietly, and then very, very loudly, building an entire kingdom from scratch. Now, before we start peeling back all these layers, if you're as obsessed with the architecture of music as I am, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're basically mapping out the DNA of P-pop here, and you're gonna want to be a part of this.
All right, let's pop the hood. It's time to get our hands a little dirty and actually look at the engine of this thing. We're starting with its technical soul, the how behind the sound that pretty much kick-started a whole movement.
So let's kick things off with the opening track, Alab. From the first second, the production hits you with this frequency spectrum that is just surgically clean. There's no mud, no mess, just pure impact. You feel that pulsing, that heartbeat in the rhythm. That's heavy sidechain compression. It's a cool trick where one sound ducks out of the way to make room for another, and it creates that signature pump. And the chords? They're using this super aggressive dominant seventh tonic resolution that feels less like a chord change and more like a physical punch to the chest. It's neon, it's loud, and it is completely unapologetic.
But then, and this is what's so brilliant, the album does this wild pivot. You get to a ballad like Tilaluha, and they're leaning into this classic 2-5-1 progression. I mean, this is the heart and soul of that nostalgic Manila sound, but they totally modernized it. They layered it with these gorgeous K-style vocal stacks. We're talking those super tight, multi-layered harmonies and ad-libs that are a hallmark of K-pop, and it just sends the emotion into a whole other stratosphere. And this level of insane complexity, it's woven through the entire record. Go Up is the album's true heartbeat, right? It's running at this ridiculously high BPM that demands just absolute perfection. The instrumentals are layered like a digital millefeuille, you know, that French pastry. Each layer is incredibly thin and precise, but when you stack them all together, you get this rich, complex texture. And have you ever noticed how the vocals always cut through everything? That's expert engineering. They've prioritized the high mids, the frequency range our ears are most sensitive to, so they just slice right through all those dense synths. Then you get to Hanggang Sa Huli with that addictive 6/8 time signature feel that just pulls you in. Seriously, there is so much going on just beneath the surface.
But look, music isn't just about the technical stuff, right? A perfect machine with no soul is just noise. So let's talk about the emotional core of this album, the feeling that this whole blueprint was designed to build.
Listening to this album now in 2026, it kind of feels like visiting the original blueprint of a skyscraper while you're standing on its 100th floor. A song like Tilaluha isn't just a sad song, it feels like this. It's like watching a porcelain statue collapse in slow motion during a rainstorm. It's just so fragile and devastating all at the same time.
And that right there is the album's core duality. If Alab is a raging forest fire, all that physical energy and unapologetic noise, then Tilaluha is the cold ash that's left behind. It's the quiet, emotional weight that settles after the explosion. The vocal stacking on Tilaluha is just, it's otherworldly. They're hitting these incredibly complex harmonies that, to me, feel like a glitch in a cathedral, you know? Something beautifully imperfect and human, resonating inside this massive, perfect structure. Is just wow. Okay, I have to ask, for the OGs, for the people who were there in 2020, what was the first song that made you sit up and realize, okay, these guys are different? Was it the insane precision of Go Up, or was it the raw heartbreak in Hanggang Sa Huli? Drop it in the comments below. I'm going to be reading everything tonight, for real. Okay, let's zoom out. Let's pull back from the music itself for a second and look at the shockwave it created. Because this album wasn't just a collection of songs, it was the start of a whole new musical universe.
And the data doesn't lie. 6 years later, in 2026, Get in the Zone still has what we call long-tail search interest on Google Trends. That just means people are still actively discovering it all these years later. Go Up is still a top-streamed legacy track all across Southeast Asia. And critically, it's now seen through this pioneer lens as the genesis moment for modern P-pop. It's the point of origin that huge publications like Billboard and Reuters always come back to. You can literally trace that ripple effect. The album blows up the scene in 2020. Then by 2022, you've got a whole new wave of P-pop acts debuting, and you can totally hear this album's DNA in their work, that demand for technical perfection, that emotional duality. By 2024, the whole genre gets major international recognition, which leads us to today, 2026, where SB19 are established global icons. It all started here.
So, the bottom line is this. It wasn't just a great debut album. It was a tectonic shift. It was the moment they stopped asking for permission to have a seat at the table and started building their own. If you're loving this trip down memory lane, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm connect more 18 from all over the world. You know, looking back, Get in the Zone isn't a perfect album, but it is a fearless one. It was fearless because it wasn't afraid to be ridiculously ambitious with its sound while also being just devastatingly vulnerable. And that brings us to the final verdict.
So on my totally abstract, totally personal scale of shards of a supernova, I'm giving Get in the Zone a solid 9.4 out of 10.
And let me explain what that even means. A supernova is this cataclysmic explosion of a star, right? This album was P-pop's supernova. It's raw, it's ambitious, and its explosive impact still hits like a freight train 6 years later. The pieces of that initial explosion, those shards, are still shaping the entire P-pop galaxy today. Each shard represents its technical genius, its emotional depth, its cultural legacy, and its undeniable influence on everything that came after.
And speaking of evolution, that leaves me with one final question for all of you. Would you like me to do a track-by-track vocal analysis of their Podtatag era next, so we can really see just how far they've traveled from these incredible beginnings? Let me know what you think.